Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Ceres in the fifth house in a natal chart. Now, Ceres in astrology can be associated with nurturing and caring, and it could also be, could be associated with how we may nurture and care for others, but also how we may desire to be nurtured and cared for. Now, given that we're talking about houses now, given that this is the fifth house in astrology, this could be a person that may nurture and care for their children very, very strongly. Somebody with, as far as a romantic or love relationship. It can be, I mean, say if this is in Scorpio, it might be very, deep, but it could also be, with a lot of emotional intensity as well. It could be a person, like say in Scorpio, could be a person that nurtures through being able to perhaps transform people that may be children in love and people in their love relationships for the better, and that could be part of the nurturing. It can also be, I mean, this could also be a person that nurtures and cares in terms of their creative endeavors. I mean, again, going back to Scorpio, say this could be something connected with the occult, the astrology, supernatural. It could be, connected with their hobbies. Again, Scorpio again could be something with locksmithing and even their investments as well. And also nurturing and caring in terms of sports. It could be a person that they're involved in sports that they show that they care about themselves in terms of minimizing injury risk by taking the precautions and strongly wearing the gear necessary in order to emphasize that. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with dissipated or depleted self-worth or self-esteem. Excuse me. Since we're talking about the fifth house, it may be tied into love, romantic relationships. It could be safe. This is an Aries. It could be due to maybe contentious or disputatious situations in love and romance. It could be over a superficial fling in some cases. It might be matters pertaining to children as well. Now, which could really, I mean, could manifest in a multitude of ways. It could be due to lack of children, or maybe the relationship of children. Some isolated cases, it might be where a person has difficulty having children. Say this is a female, this is a woman, and there's some kind of difficulty in actually having birth or having children. It could be some cases this could be about, due to maybe some investments or something connected with speculation. And also it might be through some sports, whether it's losing in a sports competition and causing some despondency or an inability to play sports or what have you. So anyway, now, another thing too is that Ceres in astrology can be associated with eating issues or disorders that are connected with food and eating. Now, could it be a person that could have like a lovesick syndrome? Well, and maybe they're eating to, supplant love. Well, in some isolated cases, it may be attributed in some cases to personal popularity. It could be lack of. It could be somebody maybe eating in order to get bigger, and this compulsive eating situation, and maybe they might be working out in the process as well to get themselves so big where they feel that they can attract, the people to them, perhaps by changing their physique or even losing weight in some cases, and thinking that their physique might be tied into their personal popularity. It could also be through matters with children as well. There might be some despondency or some disappointment in connection with that might lead to some eating issue or disorder, and it could be due to lack of enjoyment in one's life in some isolated cases as well. So, and in some cases, given that this is the house connected with fun, amusement, and enjoyment, sadly, in some cases, this could be a person that might really enjoy, maybe in some cases, indulging in a lot of food and being gluttonous and eating more than what is necessary, like binging. And I mean, especially if you have this like in a sign like Sagittarius, it doesn't do anything on a small scale. Um, Now, also, Ceres in astrology can be associated with raising children. Now, since we're talking about the fifth house, this could be done with a lot of love. It could be done where where you're actually enamored with it, really you find it very enjoyable. It could be where you encourage your children to be creative and pursue their hobbies, and making sure that that fun is incorporated into their life scheme. It could be also about encouraging them in terms of investments, and being able, and also getting involved in sports as well, and being and also things connected with personal popularity. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're kind of person that you're going to raise your child to be Mr. or Mrs. Popularity, but basically just emphasizing basics and fundamentals connected with it. Maybe, for example, letting them know that personal popularity may not be the ends to all means in terms of eternal happiness, as an example. So anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with being coerced or forcibly taken against one's will. So basically, in other words, it can be associated with kidnappings or abductions. Now, since we're talking about the fifth house, in some cases, the abduction, if in isolated cases, if this person is kidnapped or abducted, it may be at some entertainment or a venue or some amusement park. It could be tied into somebody that they might be romantically connected with, or it could be an ex-lover. And it could be, in some cases, if it's an adult child, it might be involved as well, or maybe the child is included in an abduction. But again, this is something that is very rare and isolated, and it might even take place at a gambling location or some kind of theater, something that could be connected with the fifth house in astrology. So anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be tied into family connections, and given that we're talking about the fifth house in astrology, it might be a family which you found very loving, that you really enjoyed being around. Of course, there may be contraindicators in your natal chart, such as having your moon strongly afflicted, or your fourth house cusp even having some malefics in it, something like that. I mean, the moon adverse, natal Saturn in your natal chart could be one where your family didn't really always you felt like maybe you didn't have a lot of fun, amusement, and enjoyment, and a lot of things you might have done with them might have been required a lot of laborious effort. But it can be something, or you might have felt that even the emotional support might have been restricted, or maybe or limited in some way, shape, or form. Now, it can also be where, but at the same time, as far as the general statement goes for this could be something where your family might have been strongly tied in to being personally popular. I mean, if this is in Leo, it can be connected with just being very strongly gregarious and extroverted. And it might be where you might enjoy a lot of fun, amusing things with them, such as going to amusement parks, or even sports related things such as baseball games. I mean, say if this is in Sagittarius, it might be something where you might emphasize a lot of outdoor activities, a lot of outdoor sports with your family, and you might find your family very whimsical at the same time as well, and really amusing, since we're talking about the fifth house in astrology. Now, anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with dejection, sorrow, and disappointment. Now, since we're talking about the fifth house, there might be experiences that might be very sorrowful and sad that are associated with love, with one's children. It could be through some gambling or speculation that this person might endure some heavy losses in connection with that. It might even be tied into one's personal popularity and simply not being popular enough. Say if this is in Capricorn, this is something which could really emphasize the sadness and despondency in these matters, and feeling very melancholy regarding these things as well. So and also, as far as the personal popularity, a lot of it could be dependent, predicated on aspects in your chart that might reaffirm or reinforce this, such as Saturn on your ascendant, like I have, and I'm not really exactly Mr. Popularity. So I can understand. And uh, Saturn adverse Venus can be somebody that might have, difficulties in having relationships and might have to work very hard and laboriously in order to have them. Um, Also, Ceres in astrology can be connected with protection and protective energy. Now, since we're talking about the fifth house, this might be a person that might be very exceptionally protective of their loved ones, their children, even people they may be involved in a superficial fling with. It might be about protecting their personal popularity by perhaps just continuing to do the things to maintain their popularity and their image, or what have you, in their reputation. Say this is in Leo. This could be simply by simply continuing to be very gregarious and very extroverted. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that. I'm back. But anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be tied into clothing. Now, given that this is the fifth house again, there might be a connection with being popular, being personally popular, and wearing, certain clothes that you think might attract the right people to you, and wearing what's in style, whatever's contemporary, whatever's hip, so to speak, to be in, in order to maintain popularity or to have it. It could be something too, since this is the house of hobbies and creativity. It can be something that you might actually do as a hobby, as far as knitting clothing and creating clothes. That could be a possibility. With the safe, this is an Aquarius, it could be very like eclectic style, very innovative and very unorthodox type of style of clothing this person might be interested in creating. It could also be clothing as something that you actually really enjoy, whether it's creating it, or it's buying it or wearing it. It could be something that you have some more fondness for than the average person, and it might be something that you emphasize with children, with your children as well, in terms of, as far as spending on it. So, and also your love interest as well. It might be where you may emphasize what you wear in order to pacify or appease a love interest. So anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with what one may obliterate to restore what one may have previously had. Given that this is the fifth house, in some cases it can simply be eradicating maybe some hobbies or something that was fun, amusing, and enjoyable to the person, in order to restore a love connection, a love life, or maybe even their or something with their connected with their children, having more rapport with them. So that is one example and one way that can manifest and pan out, I believe. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Ceres in the fifth house in a natal chart. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.